Hello and welcome to the Pinkbike podcast. My name is Henry and I'm joined in studio by Matt Beer. We got Dario and Mike somewhere south of the border. Who knows where? It's such a big, vast place. And we're going to talk all about mountain bikes, some questions, yada, yada, yada. You know the score by now. Matt, it's been a little while since we've had you on the podcast. Where have you been? What have you been up to? Like, you live a kilometre away. We're in the office every day, but we can't seem to ever align them. You had much on?
Two ships in the night. It's like,
100%.
You're busy, I'm free. I'm busy, you're free. Last week, I was down in the desert, actually, in Utah for a soon-to-come-out bike. That was a lot of fun. And can't talk too much about the bike right now, but that's where I was last Monday.
With these, I've seen you on a couple of product launches. Is it, how to put this? How do you feel about them? Have your feelings perhaps changed over time? Is it useful to go and ride these bikes on trails that you don't know in maybe a group that has a yet to be established dynamic? Or do you prefer just to have a bike received here, thrash out laps on trails that you know?
I think it's good to have the brand come and help you set up the bike, get familiar and acquainted with it, whether it's here or in another place. Can depend. If the bike's really foreign, like takes, it's more complicated, then maybe it helps to have the first couple of rides here, on familiar trails. But I think all of us are pretty well accustomed to setting up a bike and working out the nuances of a new bike and being able to chalk it up to one thing or another that's making us feel a little off. So either way, I think it buffs out in the end.
Kaz, Matt just said a really good word there, foreign. Getting on a bike can sometimes feel like the fact that it's got two wheels is the only similarity it has to another mountain bike you've ridden. It can sometimes feel so weird. Do you think that as we've seen sort of geometry and features sort of homogenized to a degree, has that got less? I mean, a couple of years ago, I imagine two Enduro bikes could have been drastically different in dimensions.
Yeah, I think it's gotten a little bit less, but it also makes me scratch my head more when I, like, say I'm testing one bike and then I hop on another that on paper looks almost identical, like geo's the same, everything. And then if that bike feels a lot different, I really have to be like, wait, what exactly is causing this to be different? Because, if there's two bikes and say the head angles are 2 degrees different or it's so much longer, you're like, oh, that's probably it. And you can kind of like ride and decide if you think that. But like recently I've been on two bikes that are very similar, but one of them are just like not quite clicking with. So it's been interesting to try to really dig in and find the little thing that's not working. So there's still things to kind of suss out. Even if on paper two bikes look the same, there's so many other factors that can kind of make them feel a fair bit different. But back to your point, I do think that these days it's a lot less common that a bike comes in that's fully like wacky off the wall. Like this bike is like unlike anything I've ever ridden. So.
And when we think about how geometry's changed, I'd say 15 mil is quite a big leap in reach. I would also say a degree is quite a big leap in head angle. What do you think is easier to pick up on, that style of head angle change or a bike that feels bigger or smaller?
I think for me, it's head angle. Just I think I feel like in a blind test, I'd be more likely to notice that because you can kind of adjust your body position. If you're standing up, you can kind of change. But where the front wheel is, like that steering angle can feel a good amount different. Even if you say you ride with no hands on a bike with a really slack head angle versus steep one, and just kind of like move your body side to side, that's when you kind of really feel how that handling is changed a lot. Where reach does change the handling, but I don't think to the extent that a dramatic head angle change would.
You've got that Frameworks, I believe, is your sort of go-to mule. That's got quite extreme geometry. How has it been going back from a bike that it sounds like you really got on well with, that you spend on a lot of time, going to bikes which they are progressive bikes with modern geometry, but maybe not quite as modern as something like the TP geometry of a 90-degree seat tube angle?
It's so I think the Frameworks actually, the production version that I'm riding now isn't quite as extreme as the prototype. For the most part, it's pretty normal, actually. Like the head angle is 63.5. The reach is 500 mil. Seat angle is 79 degrees. I'd say the unusual things are the stack and the chainstay length. And those are very big. Like chainstays are 460. Stack is in the 670s. And that's just to the top of the head tube. So it's a very spacious bike. I actually hadn't ridden.
It's probably a good thing that you have your handlebars pretty much rolled down to your ankles.
Exactly. They're flopped under the stem. Like those old cafe racers. Yeah. I actually hadn't ridden the frameworks in a while, just because I'm on test bikes, and then hopped on it this weekend and went and rode North Shore, which is like a place I ride sometimes, but not that frequently. And I will say that the bike just feels entirely comfortable to me. Like that's part of what I really like about that chassis is it's a neutral enough in all the important ways that you can kind of just get along with it. And then the like very large rider area in the bike allows me to just like relax if I need to and do things if you want. So it doesn't feel, it almost feels like a better palate cleanser because it's so easy to ride. For me, at least, I think that's the utility there.
Does that huge stack and reach, do they take away from like the sort of snappiness?
Nah, not in the ways I care about. I think like if you were trying to do like real poppy little jib riding or something like that, then yeah. But for me, like you can still pull for fun little trail gaps and stuff like that. It doesn't feel like a boat. And that comes down to more like the suspension performance, I think, than it does the overall geometry.
Well, your height too. Like you're 6'3".
Yeah,
so
like
tell people
it fits
that.
me.
Yeah,
like the bike fits me well.
If you're a 5'5" guy telling people like this is the best bike ever, I'd be more skeptical.
No, fuck no. Like, yeah, and I have an e-bike right now that has pretty similar geometry, and like that feels like a boat in comparison, but it's also 12 pounds heavier. So it's like
only 12 pounds.
That's a heavy e-bike.
Could be like 60 pounds. Still.
Well, it's for the record, I've gotten the new frameworks down to 38 pounds. So it's, I think that's lightweight at this point. It's essentially
it's got like a summer body on.
Yeah, it's summer body. Yeah, so 50-pound e-bike is normal-ish. But
something I saw in a similar vein to what you're talking about that I saw crop up on Instagram in this last week or so was that BMB stem that I reviewed maybe a year and a half ago.
Yep.
He's now built a test mule around the stem, although the stem is actually, it used to be 150 mil. I think it's now 90 mil.
Yeah.
And this bike has a crazy long rear end, which I kind of touched upon in the review. Like I just felt it wasn't even so much the stem was the issue. It was the fact that to say that it fits any bike was mad to me. Like you can't just be like, oh, it works anyway. And then be like, because there's so much that contributes towards a bike's balance. And I think it's super cool to see him go for something where, it's making a home for the stem.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, home. Across from us, we have the Grim Donuts just chilling. Did you ever try it on that?
No.
Because I bet that would kind of make sense, right? Like huge wheelbase, super slack. You want your bars higher, all that stuff.
Well, I think so. I think the problem with the stem, though, compared to just riser bars, is that the stem is rise in line with the steering axis. It's when you've got a slack bike. Because I had it at my Spire, and I think it punished it more for that. But there's maybe something to that. I think it just... if you're going to take weight off the front wheel, however you do it, you've got to put weight back on somewhere else. Yeah. And I think it's, like you said, there is elements of that long chainstay, which can be really good. But I also think it's good to see him, come back with another option. But it's like a halfway house. I think it's like 90 mil. And best of luck to him. Hope it works out. Speaking of new tech, new kit, have we got any exciting show and tells? Kaz, what socks you got on? Talk me through your merino underpants.
It's a new
what
magic
outdoor deodorant
fabric.
are you rocking? What's up?
No, look, I got this thing. Look at this thing. Oh man, I dropped it. I can show you that. Look, this.
Oh
shit!
That's a thing.
It's a derailleur.
There's no batteries. Look, there's no batteries. It takes cable. Yeah. So
talk us through.
I will.
What's up with it? What's going on?
This is the new Eagle 90, and there's also Eagle 70. 2 new drivetrains from SRAM, and they both are cable actuated. So no batteries. But they still use the same direct mount, or SRAM calls it full mount, that you saw on the previous transmission stuff. So it goes right onto your chain stage. Yeah, you have to have a UDA. Your bike has to be universal derailleur hanger compatible, but then this thing just sandwiches right on there, and that just goes right on.
So just T-type cable operated.
Yep. T-type cable operated. One of the cool things is it's super rebuildable. Like I made a video up. Probably by the time people are listening, there'll still be a video somewhere that has a little stop animation thing. But I can take this apart in like 7 minutes, like all the way apart, every single little piece. And they have service parts available too. So like the little cage, the pieces that you might hit, like the little cage, the top and bottom parts. You can take like this little pulley can come off. Obviously the normal little bits, but the whole thing comes apart really easily. And I think that's a cool feature because that's, it's annoying if you bend a little thing or break a little thing, you have to buy a whole new derailleur. You shouldn't have to with this.
Have you been drilling it like a military gun, just taking it apart with a blindfold on?
I did practice a couple times just to like, because I was making that video and like, you don't want to like fumble in the video and look like, but it took me, I pulled it all the way apart and put it back together twice. And then by the third time it was like, it's so easy. And even the first time,
this is my E90 Mech.
There are many Eagle 90 derailleurs, but this one is mine.
Yeah, I know. I should have done that in the video. But
that would be Gomer Pyle.
How much? What's the incentive? Is it an expensive thing for people that just want cable, or is it a value proposition to cut under T-type?
Yeah, close to a value proposition. Like the price is, the whole group is $670 and that includes cranks. So it's kind of like GX level. It's almost, I think when GX cable actuated first came out, it was like $580 something. That was like 5 or 6 years ago. So this is like a little more expensive, but it's also 6 years later. So it is a full group set. And price wise, it's kind of like, they're just calling it Eagle 90, but I would say it's closer to like a GX option. And then the Eagle 70 is closer to like your SX option or something. So definitely.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
They can counterpunch Shimano in that dual SLX place.
Yeah.
And the cassette and chain that come with 90 are GX. Like they're the same as the transmission GX stuff. So it's like in that sense.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's the shifter like?
Then the shifter, I don't have that in here, but we could maybe put up big or something. It's kind of bigger. It's a little bit different. And they made it so that they want basically the way the cable exit it kind of matches the way that the cables work on like a Maven or a new code. It's a little closer to the handlebars. So they're trying to like keep the cables looking neat and tidy as they go around the front of your bike.
Kaz, you tested, did that huge test on the T-type electronic. Mm-hmm. You then have experimented running, mechanical mechs on T-type components, and now you've got the full SRAM complement, full group set. Yeah. Where are you landing in terms of your personal bike?
Realistically, so as far as performance goes, I have a month on this so far, so it's not going to be, there's not a full review, just kind of like an extensive first ride basically, because I haven't smashed it into enough rocks to really talk about durability. The shifting is good, but I wouldn't say it's amazing. Like it doesn't blow you away. Like you try it, like, oh, it's fine. It kind of really just fades to the background, but it's not not super light and not super, just like not magical. I think stable is the word that kept coming up because you can definitely still shift under load. I think it's gonna be great for e-bikes where you're like cranking down. It's just like gunk, gunk, gunk. It goes into gear and stays in gear all the time. Like that's been great, but it's also, I think there's room for improvement, whether they or someone else comes out with like a little different shifter, maybe something like a little bit, that can just kind of be a little bit lighter action. That's the only kind of gripe I have. It just doesn't feel like, it feels like GX, which is fine. And that's what it's supposed to be, but I kind of want like a high end
like an EXO drivetrain shifter for it would be cool.
Yeah. Something like that. I did try previous SRAM shifter on this just to see if it worked because they told me it wouldn't, and they weren't lying. It doesn't work well. So I thought I could put like an EXO shifter on and see if it worked, but it didn't. It's just off by just like, you could probably get it work okay in most gears, but it wasn't amazing. So don't do that.
They haven't published the pull ratio, right?
I don't know what the pull ratio is. Yeah, but just
so I wonder if like maybe your weird Vivo shifter or like a Shimano shifter would work with it. Like
it could be, yeah. And I guess as far as like the overall shift speed, because that is one thing people have complaints about current axis or current transmission stuff. They say that it shifts slowly, which I can see that. Like if you're someone that wants to slam through all the gears, like you're coming into a dip or something, you want to go to an easier gear and you forgot to shift, it can take a little bit for that derailleur to move up. And people were blaming that.
Why does that happen though? Because isn't it limited by the cassette?
Yeah, it's the cassette's narrow wide thing.
But what difference does it make whether it's electronic shift or it's a cable shift?
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't. So this still is just So, but like, a lot of people before were saying like the electronics, like if you could somehow force it to go, but the chain kind of waits until the teeth allow it to go up to the next one. So I think it's just the architecture design of that cassette. So it's like not the absolute fastest shifting. For me, I don't have any complaints about the speed, but you hop on a different system and you're like, oh, this is faster. So
it's a double click downshift. So you can like, and I would say it's because of that mechanical action, it's like marginally quicker if you're trying to get easier gears quickly, but it's not night and day by any means. Do you think that the clutch is stronger in Eagle 90?
I do think the clutch is pretty good. Yeah, that's one thing. Like SRAM, it seems like their clutches depend on which model you get or what day of the week it is. Some just seem a little bit weak, and then some are strong. But this one, it's, I don't know, you can't really see how strong it is, but it definitely takes a good amount of force, and it's pretty consistent too. Like this is the
sometimes you have the demeanor of someone that's wandered out of an old people's home on lunch break.
I mean, it could be I haven't talked to anyone in a while. I just been playing with this derailleur.
I found that it was like, because I took a GX transmission derailleur off my bike and put that on it, and I only have 2 rides on it, but it was like noticeably quieter on descents. I mean, that makes sense. Like you'd want a lighter clutch for an electric system because it would be draining the motor that much more per shift if it has to overcome a certain clutch force, where your cable is not fatiguing in any way.
Yeah. They also say that for both Axis and T-type stuff, that the housing holds the derailleur in place a little more on the frame, so the derailleur doesn't wiggle.
Yeah, so we can like swing away.
Maybe less slap.
Yeah, so I'm glad this exists. Like it's a good step. I don't know. I'm curious also what they'll do if there are going to be higher end ones in the future. I kind of doubt it, just because they have the electronic stuff that's working well for a lot of people. But I am a fan of cables and not needing to charge batteries. So we'll see where it goes.
Well, let's just do a bit of a quick around the room, because in some ways I think it's been interesting to see Shimano and SRAM go in different directions. SRAM going for a slightly sturdier but slower shift. Shimano seem to still be pursuing the fastest shift at all costs. Starting with you, Kaz, and Dario, Matt, where do you think this is going? Because it's interesting to see the 2 biggest companies go in different directions with how they perceive shift speed, where on T-Type, for those that don't know, the chain is basically limited on the cassette until there's the specific ramp. So it means that it can be slower because there's less of those ramps per rotation than what Shimano are doing on Hyperglide Plus, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of want both. Like I want fast shift speed, and I really do like the direct mount design. And I think that can make a really strong derailleur. So I'm glad, like for me, I would take the stronger derailleur and one that lasts longer with a little bit slower shifting rather than one that's super fast and more delicate. Like I just want to not have to think about my derailleur. So I think that's good. And then, I'll be interested to see what Shimano does as far as like, we've seen patents float around from Shimano that use a direct mount thing, and they've done something like that in the past, but we'll see.
Dario?
I would go, I mean, like it just comes down to the 2 for me. It's Shimano or SRAM. I'd go with either Link Glide or GX Axis, or GX Transmission rather.
You want a slightly slower but firmer shift.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be able to shift like an idiot and have the derailleur survive. And I don't really care about the speed all that much. Like having done a lot of back to back, between transmission and cable drivetrains. Yes, it's faster, but like I don't find that it's changing my riding in a way that is that meaningful for me.
Just to come to your point though, so the idea being that you touched on there with the Link Glide, which is Shimano's steel cassette that has a sort of, you're able to brutalize it more, but the shift is slightly slower. Do you not feel though that sometimes because the shift is slightly slower, you then have to be harder on the drivetrain? Because
but I think it's chicken and egg there, right? Where it's like it can survive more, therefore you give it more, and also it can only survive more because it's slower. So it's like I think it's a self-feeding thing where you wouldn't necessarily arrive at those factors without one of them in there. So I don't know. I'm curious to see like how that evolves, because I think that is maybe like the revelation that Shimano and SRAM have come to, is like, oh, we can put our high-end drivetrains on e-bikes and not have to like separate forces in that sense. I think that, just from an efficiency of scaling standpoint is
Do you think they want to though? Or do you think that e-bikers just don't want to have the mid-level group set on what they perceive to be a mid-level group set on their $15,000 bike?
I mean, even if it's mid-level, like, if I'm Jimmy SRAM, I want to make a drivetrain that can go on an Olympic XC bike and on a $15,000 e-bike. Like, because then it's just less things to make, right? So if they can both be really good for the application, then we're stoked. And if that's a settings difference between like how it indexes digitally, or, some mechanical difference in like how many clicks you get out of the shifter. Like that's one thing with the Eagle 90 is there's a single click shifter for e-bikes and there's a multi-click shifter for pedal bikes. And, that's a simpler way to differentiate your product lineup as opposed to like an entirely different group set for the things.
Matt, how do you feel on the kind of speed versus, I don't know what you call it, like ability to shift hard?
Like robustness, maybe.
Yeah,
Robustness,
just like
yeah.
strength, kind of. They're all kind of different. Say like the Link Glide, the Eagle, the old one versus the T-Type. It's kind of tough. I mean, like you have the durability with the T-Type derailleurs because there's no hanger, but then the cage is so much longer.
Yeah.
And that kind of puts it in a precarious place. But I do really like how you can be an idiot and just hammer through those gears, although it's not the fastest. I do find that the speed of upshifting of the T-Type, whether it's, I haven't tried the mechanical, but the electronic stuff, it kind of leaves some room for improvement. Like if there was some sort of like racer override where you could bang through them quicker, I know it might not shift as smooth, but I do find sometimes I need those harder pedal strokes and it just takes too long to get to that gear. And then you're like, you can hear the derailleur moving and you're going down the trail and you're not pedaling anymore.
That's true.
Yeah, I wonder if they
that
could
like 2 seconds ago.
I wonder if they could make like a racer cassette where they just like shave down some of those shift ramps, just let it go. Like
I've heard that there's a digital overdrive or overwrite function, but I don't know if that's true.
It doesn't matter though.
Do like a shift and a half to pull it off, and then
I think it can like force it off, but I don't. This is unsubstantiated.
Yeah, it's not the shifter.
This is
though,
perfect.
Like that's making the speed because it shows that it's
there
not
must be a point though, Kaz, where if it did like 2 shifts for a second and like then came back, it might be enough just to jig it off.
When I think that's like when I was running the transmission with the Vivo derailleur, that shifter allowed for more. You could really like throw it up the cassette more. So I think that's what we're getting with this one. Like this one, you can only go up 2 gears at a time to an easier gear. So if you could go up 5 in a sweep, that would let you kind of toss it up. But I think they're probably worried about durability. But yeah, maybe.
Did that Vivo thing make it shift like shit? Like if you dumped 5 gears, would it be like weird, clunky all the way up?
No, it worked. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was like really light action. Like that Vivo shifter was pretty nice. I think it just had a little more leverage or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
So,
Wow. Well, on to the next show and tell. Dario, what do you have for us this week?
We've got another SRAM thing. We've got some new brakes. These are called the Motive. They are...
So that sounds like a mid-range rental car in Europe.
Motive.
the Renault Motive.
Yeah, the Renault Motive.
I'm sorry, we're
Motive.
actually out of the car you wanted, but we have got a Motive.
It has one seat in the middle of the car.
The 3 wheels.
Yeah.
3 wheels.
Yeah, you have to strap your luggage to the roof.
Yeah.
No, these are the replacement for the level, essentially. So the level is gone.
What? No, we only did oh no, I'm going to stop you there.
No.
The level got replaced recently, no?
Yeah, about a year
but it
ago,
didn't work.
it got
They didn't stop you.
upgraded to a 4-piston brake that was just as weak as the 2-piston brake. And
It's like the people keep, they have a bad behaved dog and they just get a new dog. You know what I mean?
like,
Oh, but this is a different one. You
No,
know
but
this one before.
I would say so. The Maven is like the downhill and big bike brake that is established. I think you should run them on anything that is going to see like serious descending. The Motive is now more like cross country to light trail. I think the way they've phrased it is there's like potential overlap with the code where like you could detune a code to the point where it's equivalent to the most aggressively set up Motive. That being like, a 220 mil rotor with like metal pads and whatever. I would say it feels more like a really good cross country brake or like an appropriate cross country brake. I have a bike with XTR 2 pistons on it right now, and I would call them similar. So it's good though.
Yeah.
It's not.
I think
they're
they're
not
saying,
bad.
they're kind of like saying it's for like bikes with 130 mils of travel or less or something. I feel like I saw that somewhere, which fits. I've got it on my XC bike too, and yeah, they're even saying their code light is probably too strong, but they're definitely a lot better than the levels. Like I just never got along with the levels because they didn't stop me, the level 4 pistons, and these ones stopped me, and I've been great. Like
Yeah, like
Did the level replace the guide? No, the guide was
no.
So it was the
guide
G2s which sat between the code and the levels, right?
Right. So they killed that like weird middling thing, and now the Motive is, I would say it's like similar to a guide where but it has the same
much
weight
better.
as a level.
I have to say it's much better. Like they actually
well,
work.
yeah, but like in
oil,
terms of the bikes that you'll be putting it on, it's a mineral oil brake with 4 pistons that weighs the same as a level, but has like a more appropriate level of power for light trail bikes and a pretty nice lever feel. I would say that's like the nicest feel of it. Like otherwise it's like a kind of generic feeling brake. You're like, yeah, these work well. It's nothing like, there's no weird elements to it. There's no contact adjust. It's just like reach adjust and that's it. They're good. I have a set of the bronze ones and a set of the ultimates, and both are solid. Like not much to report really.
So we had the Motive and the Maven both on mineral oil. Do you think that there'll be another M worded replacement for the code?
I think these are that. I think the code is going away.
Yeah, but there is room. I would still say there's room. There's definitely room in their lineup for something in between. Like I think that they're missing it, but I haven't heard anything about anything coming in the near future. But I do feel like they could come out with something. We could probably help them with their branding right now and think of the M word for the new brake. But I do think there's a slot in the middle for the.
Just call it SRAM middle.
Middle.
SRAM middle.
That's perfect. Yeah, I think that's true because I like I have my tall boy that's like a test sled for a lot of these sorts of brakes. The motives are not enough brake for that bike. And I have Mavens on it right now, and that's arguably too much brake for that bike. So I think somewhere between the two. I mean, I don't know. Like I am happily running them and will not be taking them off anytime soon. Like to me, Mavens feel appropriate for that bike. But
which bike is it on? Sorry, I missed the
tall boy.
Oh yeah, that's too much. You don't need that.
No, it's
you could save half a pound. Like you could save a lot of weight.
And the forecaster tires. Like, do you know what I mean? One will they'll just combat each other. They cancel each other out.
Yeah. No, you could save half a pound with some proper brakes. Like,
and if I put like the Piccolas back on it,
no, Mavens are really heavy.
I know, but they also work really well.
Yeah, but they're very heavy. So there's something in the middle that there's an
exactly.
that we haven't thought up yet.
The SRAM middle. The SRAM middle will probably be the appropriate brake for the tall boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Matt, where do you fall on this? What brakes? Because you've got a high tower.
Tall boy.
He is a tall boy too.
Yeah, extra tall.
Extra tall. What brakes do you have on that? And would you want not just the same brake from your Enduro bike on there?
So it came built with old code RSCs with 180 rotors, and those are definitely not enough. And that's not just trying to ride Enduro trails in Squamish. That's like Chilcotin and riding, longer, more mellow descents. So I put 200 mil rotors on there, and that definitely improved it. I would say that's pretty adequate for most of the riding.
Adequate or sweet spot?
Adequate. Yeah. I would say like if you're a heavier rider or you have packs or day bags on, like, and you're doing those lengthy descents, they do heat up. They don't retain the same bite. But jumping back to those pivot trail cats that I rode, I don't know if that was the proper spec going forward. They might change those to motives, but they came with Mavens and 180 rotors front and rear, and nobody complained about how powerful they were for those bikes during.
And you were riding in the desert, right? Like loose, dry terrain.
Yeah, they felt sweet. Whether it's totally necessary for everybody, that's another story. If you're a lighter rider and you want to try and save some weight on brakes, then it could be an option.
I like that being the forced upgrade as opposed to having to go out and buy better brakes, though. Like, I like it. I like a world where the bike comes with solid big brakes, and then you have to detune to fit your use case.
Well, that's what I said about that whole launch was like, nobody complained about how heavy their brakes were or even how powerful they were. Like organic pads and 180 rotors.
Yeah, my gripe is sweet. Which I agree. Like I would rather have more brake than not enough brake because that's obviously what you want. But we're starting to see forks come out for these little bikes that have a 200 millimeter minimum rotor size. So you're kind of screwed. Yeah, it's like the new stuff that maybe launches when people are listening to this.
Oh, well, I can segue to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Those new forks from Fox.
We have Fox 36 and 36 SL come out this week. Those are both trail and smaller travel trail forks.
Oh, no, hold on. So we've got it where the 38 had 180 mil mount and we got to the 200. And now they've gone for 200 on the...
Well, so there's a separation. 36, which is your all-mountain 140 to 160 travel fork range, has a 200 mil post mount. 36 SL, which is 120 to 140, is 180 post mount.
Okay.
So
Well, that seems okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was that because I only have the regular.
It's
36.
think of it like Pike and Lyric, but it's 36 and 36 SL. Like
Okay.
they're doing
And so,
like
so-
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say. I mean, did they touch on with the fork? I've always been wondered the difference between, yes, giving the consumer options about what to spec, but also the stiffness at the caliper. Do you think it makes that much difference with a mount there, especially if you're going to say adding 40 mil of spacers essentially?
I could see it if you're running one of those crazy big adapters, but
With a big powerful brake, like with a Maven on there, that's real.
I mean,
like,
they made
bang.
like both of these forks are significantly more stiff torsionally than their predecessor. So like 36 SL is replacing the 34, and it is 20% stiffer than that. 36 is replacing 36, 20% stiffer than that. The new 36 is like almost the same torsional stiffness as the 38. It's just more flexible fore aft. And they've done a ton to change the friction in the fork. So it's like, it's
heard a
so
rumor about
good. I really like the 36. Yeah, the airspring has calamari dampers in it. So it's got like 2 rubber elastomers that separate the airspring from the chassis. Meaning like as your chassis deflects in rough terrain or like hard cornering or something, the airspring remains perfectly in line, or more in line rather, so that it doesn't bind on itself as you're like, chundering through shit. And then they've increased bushing overlap to make the fork stiffer in those moments anyway. So I would say overall it feels very smooth. Like that's the defining characteristic is like.
So could it be compared to buttercups in any way, but just like a different location almost?
No, the buttercups are just to like, they're trying to like reduce the nose of like wheel hitting bump and how that translates to your hands. This is trying to isolate the airspring from the chassis forces on the fork.
Yeah, I guess so. That would be, the airsspring technology where we're working throughout the whole stroke, where buttercups are just that initial bit once you bottom them out or use.
Fox is calling it Glidecore.
Glidecore is my favorite kind of music. I've got
Glidecore
for you guys yesterday.
I said they should have called it butter hoops or something like that. Like just straight rip it off. Go.
Or like margarine or something.
Yeah, margarine. Oh man, it's funny. Like, how to put this? Seeing, to some extent, the issues that we had with shocks 5 years ago about alignment and different frames, sort of butchering them, and they're now sort of repackaging that in forks and trying to get that really. But no, sounds like a pretty solid idea to me. How much do they ride different? Can you get a sense of that, Dario?
Well, the airspring on a more meaningful level has changed as well. Like it has a lighter entry than the previous. Like it's softer off the top, no matter what your starting pressure is. So I think that they've changed the airspring completely. It just happens to include this new technology. So there is a very different ride feel in that sense. Uses the same exact dampers as before. So you can have Grip X or Grip X2, or just the standard grip if you want that. And then the SL fork, I think, can run the SL damper in the minimum travel, but I would not necessarily do that. It feels like a 36, but they've just made it smoother and work better. It's not like it's very significant in terms of like all the work they've done, but ultimately it's like a better version of itself.
Yeah.
What do you think is easier for? Sorry, guys.
I was going to say, like, if you just purchase, because as a consumer, it'd be hard to keep up with all this stuff. You're like Grip X2, blah, 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 and all these, the calamari, whatever. I think if you just purchased, like in the last year or so, you bought the new 36 Grip X2, you don't need this new fork. I would say.
You're not going to be bummed.
But. No, you have a good fork already. Even the old X2 Grip, I don't even know, Grip 2, the old Grip 2. Grip X2,
still really
Grip 2 is still a good fork, So it's not like they've been taking, there are all improvements, but it's not like so night and day or something you need to like go and rush out and get it. It's a new fork that has it feels really good, but I think the last one was really good. And the one before that was pretty good too.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I wonder what you feel, Dario, about having done so many of these Fox launches, seeing what's going on with SRAM at the moment as they roll out these new brakes. And on one hand, you've got, say, Fox and Shimano, who say you do XT brake, and then there might be a different model number that maybe is the XT trail brake, but it's largely the same architecture. People know what they're getting. You get, for instance, the Fox 36 is the really big sort of umbrella term, and then it breaks down into SL and then grip. Yeah. Compared to SRAM who just do the lyric,
Mhm.
and then you get the ultimate, but it's
the
got
best, middle, worst. Yeah.
yeah, and then you get a whole new break though instead of getting a code trail. Do you see what I mean? What do you
Yep.
think's easier for people to understand?
I think SRAM's method is definitely simpler. Like it breaks down in a way that's easier to understand on our end, on the consumer end. I think the challenge Fox has with their lineup is there's too many options to the point where like even they seem to have a hard time like mapping how you can combine things. So like with the 36 and the 36 SL, they are completely different chassis. Like the lowers are different, the uppers are different, the crown is different, the air
Can you swap
springs are
them into
different.
Could you put the?
No,
Is it the same space? So you can't just put the CSU from a 36.
I don't think so.
36
No,
SL.
it's like
Right.
it. I mean, they would. I think the spacing is similar. Like the stanchions would fit the lowers, but I don't think that you should because everything else is different, and I don't know how they'd interact. Okay. So like, but they're also sequestered by travel now. So it's like the only overlap point is 140, and you can have a 140 36 or a 140 36 SL, but in all other aspects they're different. Like the 36 SL uses that Glidecore air spring, but it's kind of like a reduced weight version of it, so it has less deflection because it's a smaller fork.
Less calamari.
Less calamari. Yeah, I mean, the way I'm thinking about this is like for people who were running a 38 on their trail bike because they liked the way it felt, the new 36 is good enough to replace that. Like, okay. I still think the 38 for a bike bigger than 160 is the choice, but the 36 is no longer like a very good trail fork. It's now like something you could run on anything, if that makes sense. Like
all mountain's back, all mountain return.
All mountain is back. I've never let it go, but like, yeah, I think this is a very good all mountain fork, and it's probably what I'll be running. Like, and I'm not going to put it on the frameworks, but on like any mid travel bike, it makes sense to me. It's like that.
The regular 36.
Yes. The SL is a bit more confusing as a proposition because it's like, it is
that's for
a
Henry's
lot
favorite
lighter.
trail bikes.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was curious about was like, what were previous 34 riders looking for? Did they want a stiffer fork? And because they had a great sort of naming scheme and ladder in terms of how the sizing related to how hard you wanted to ride. And now they've kind of done away with the regular 34 and gone to the 36 SL. So that'll be a fork I'm interested to learn more about.
Yeah, I think 36 SL is like a solid replacement for the 34. So like I'll say for me, I've run the 34 on the Tallboy a lot. And I think it's a really good pairing in that sense. Like I kind of liked some of the flex that the 34 had, but for sure you could overwhelm it and it would start to feel a little freaky. 36 SL is stiffer. In many senses, the air spring feels the same. But you do have the option of like different dampers. It comes with the Grip X stock, and I'm still not sold on that damper. I think it's like a weird middle child where there might not need to be one. To answer back to your question, Henry, it's like, this is where I think there's unnecessary complication. Is like you have a very good XC damper, the SL, and you have a very good downhill and all mountain damper. That's the X2. There doesn't need to be something between the two, to me at least. But like, I'm sure there's an argument for that.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to hear see how it goes out in time. And how once enough people get to ride the Grip X and get to ride the Grip X2, how much of the consumer base is grateful to have that Grip X. Because there were some people, for instance, that really liked their Fit 4s and they liked that quick changeability and the fact that it wasn't such a complex or perceived to be quite a complex way to set it up.
Right.
But actually, once you get used to the Grip 2 and then the Grip X2, I think it's great.
It's only one.
The beauty of it is that you don't need to touch it at all.
Once it's set, you just leave it.
Yeah, because like Grip X is just all it's changing simplicity wise is it doesn't have high speed rebound. Like it still has high speed compression, though it's a smaller range, and that high speed compression results in a lockout if you fully close it. But no one's doing that. Like no one locks out their trail fork. No one
Well,
should.
but I think,
like,
and I've spoken to product managers in the past, and when their brands were speccing the Fit 4, which had a similar sort of adjustment externally. And I said, well, you've made a great bike, it's got great geometry, you've done a really good job, but you spec the wrong damper. And they were just adamant. They said, well, we might spec the wrong damper for someone that really prioritizes how well the bike descends, but for everyone else, we haven't. And I thought it was a really interesting take, because to me, that's such the forefront of my mind. But people that wanted that 130mm bike to ride, it's not far off, just like a leisure cycling. It's
yeah, and it saves 70 grams. That's something
huge.
And,
huge.
Yeah, huge. It's like, I don't know. I have an XC bike that came with a Grip X34 SL, and that feels appropriate to me. I'm like, this is a really good damper for this cross country bike, but then again, the SL damper is a really good damper for a cross country bike. I don't know, man.
Wow. I think
we're going to turn this into a 5-hour podcast.
Yeah. What are they talking about? They're just talking about SLX2.
That's the other thing is like the naming could be a bit, they could have better separation within the naming structure. I think that's part of what makes it complicated for people.
If you had say we go for what SRAM's doing, the Motive, the Code, and the Maven.
Yep.
If they named it after sitcom characters, you got the Dewey, the Malcolm, and the Reese. You know what you're getting.
I want the
is
Dewey.
Like a really rare high premium break that only comes in,
right.
It's like cameo role. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just to help people out, you know what I mean?
I like the Dewey.
Hot, cold, and, medium. Just porridge. Just go 3
I think porridge sizing is the way to do it. Yeah.
Porridge is pretty good. Matt, please help us escape this tedium of numbers and letters.
No problem.
Please. Okay, just no acronyms from here on out, guys.
Yep.
Matt, what you got as your show and tell?
Well, I was going to talk about Revel's Rascal SL.
Oh, fuck.
Fuck off with the SL. No.
So
I'm sorry.
I'll just do this one really quick. It's the same bike. It's a lighter frame, higher carbon layup. But this show comes out when?
Thursday.
Oh, okay. I have to wait.
Do you have to bleep out what you just said or bleep out what you were going to say?
No, this one's good.
This one comes out.
Yeah,
cool.
I'll have to wait for
How
the
much
other
lighter
thing.
is it?
The frame is almost a pound or 450 grams lighter than.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's way different than like the CC or the S-Works weight savings. That's usually like half a pound. So
yeah, and then there's a bunch of different build kits, but essentially the new lighter frame is the same price as the previous frame, and now the heavier frame is cheaper.
And did you like it, most importantly?
I thought it was a pretty sweet, fast-paced, shorter travel trail bike. Yeah.
Is the previous one, at least I remember you test riding a Revel last year.
Yeah.
It had geometry more on the conservative side, would that be fair to say? You quite liked it, but it wasn't maybe something like the Transition Smuggler.
No. Yeah, it was a totally different bike. Exact same geometry, same kinematics. The frames come with the same shock. So all the same features and sizing. It's just a lighter frame with a different carbon layup.
Nice.
Yeah.
And did you hear anything speaking to them about did they ever bring out that downhill bike? Had that beautiful prototype?
Oh yeah,
which had something to do with the CIA, but I can't remember what.
I do forget the name. I don't know if
it's like the Revel Jason Bourne or something.
Yeah.
I think that was the CIA. What were they doing? With the CIA and the kinematics or something?
The Rodeo.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was just a Bondo frame. Like I don't think that was a real bike.
It's on their
3D
website,
printed.
but yeah, I think they're still working on it.
Yeah.
Right.
But can you help me? Did it have something to do with the CIA or not?
I don't remember.
I'm not joking.
Are you thinking CBF? That's like their Canfield suspension design.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe.
There was something to do with a bike from Revel. I don't know if this is a dream. I don't think it was. There was some sort of military funding in the technology for the thermoplastic or something.
Oh, huh.
And it
I
was
read
like
that
this
article, I
bike,
actually
like
remembered it.
literally was. I don't know, had something to do with it. I mean, Revel, if you're listening, I'm happy to be wrong. I'm not saying that you are.
I'm reading through the article right now.
But if you start going on, start taking various holidays about the place, people will start wondering.
There it is.
yeah, no,
okay.
it was Arrivo.
As a final twist to the tale of Arrivo, the CIA, or rather InQtel, the CIA's venture capital firm, is one of the investors in the company.
Yeah.
And Arrivo is the 3D
Wow.
printing company that made the frame.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right, Henry. That is
Right.
actually not a fever dream. It
No.
did
Yeah, I even
have-
wrote those
But it
words.
feels like one.
It does seem, it was 3 years ago now, almost. No, 2 years ago.
And so
Huh.
how come, and so maybe this is going to get us into, I thought the CIA is like a government agency. Do they invest in shit?
Yeah, to keep their money going.
What?
Our government, we shouldn't talk about our government. It's messed up.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
But to me, that's just like Wolverhampton Library owning a part of Barcelona football team. It's just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it's nuts.
Yeah. There's some
Okay.
things. Oh, yeah. What's.
Right,
It's
well,
a
let's
mess.
just move on. Okay, let's
Yeah.
get some questions going. Let's see what the good people of potentially CIA-backed coups are listening to, what they want to know.
Huh.
Howdy, this is Chris from Colorado, and I've got two somewhat related questions for you guys. First off, I'm a bit of a bigger rider, around 220, 230, and I was wondering if you think bigger riders should default to bigger bikes. I don't mean in terms of bike size, but in terms of category of bike. So specifically, I've been looking at the Transition Sentinel versus the Transition Spire. And I'm wondering if you think that it's better for someone in my sort of weight category to size up in terms of category of bike, even though someone smaller might be able to get away with less bike.
Shall we do this as one question at a time, or should we? I don't know
there
what the second
multiples?
question is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's run through this one really quick.
Yeah.
This is pretty,
Matt, starting with you.
Yeah. I think a good way to sort of compare this, or for me to put it in perspective, is riding a regular bike versus an e-bike. And when I ride an e-bike with equal travel to the non-assisted bike, it feels short on travel. So I would say yes, if he's willing to sacrifice maybe a little bit of weight. In
But he
terms
probably
of,
puts out more power as well.
well, yeah, then the whole thing spirals, right? It's like,
So you are saying you would go higher travel?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I don't think it's a bad thing to try, because you're probably going to do the same for tires, rims, like it just comes down to forces being put into the bike.
Well, I think it's interesting to see so many brands go down this route of having as like a sales sheet point that they've got this size specific tune on their shock for different weight riders, but then they put the same tires on all bikes. I think they should do the same. It's easier to swap, as it goes up, but maybe that's asking too much. Dario, it sounds like maybe you're not in agreement with Matt. How do you feel?
I agree, but for a different reason. I think usually within a brand's lineup, if they're paying attention to the stiffness of their frame, they have different stiffness targets as you increase in travel. The XC bike is going to be the most pliant, where the Enduro bike is probably the stiffest chassis, or at least like the most resilient chassis. So in that sense, like if you're a bigger rider riding hard, a longer travel bike probably will suit your mass better in that sense. Like, but that's not true of every brand. I don't know that that's like a universal target for people.
Well, I think it also just gives you more. I agree with what both of you said. I think also it gives you a more stroke to handle a hard. If you're really heavy, you basically have, the moment. Sorry, the length of time the bike takes to compress is essentially longer. There's more oil being pushed, and I think that's a bad thing. That's not to say that you have to get a bigger bike, but you probably will just find, for all the reasons we said about the SL and the 36 and the 34 Stepcast SL,
yeah.
blah, 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 blah.
I would,
Yeah.
Although just solve a lot of problems.
like
at once.
220 isn't huge either, though. Like
and in this
he's
case, he's talking about bikes. Like it'd be different. I'd have a really clear cut answer if he's talking about like an XC bike versus a trail bike, and he was like a really, really
Right.
big guy. But in this case, like Sentinel versus Spire, he can get either one of those and be totally fine. Like
Yeah.
it's both of those have 150. You can make the Sentinel have 160. Like it really just kind of depends. At that point, it comes to geometry. I wouldn't worry about either bike accepting your weight.
Yeah,
like
that's
if
true.
you really
Yeah.
were worried about the fork stiffness, you could put a Zeb or a 38 on the Sentinel. So it's in this case, he's kind of in he's already in the area where the frame should be able to handle his mass and shouldn't be an issue. But it's a different story if you're talking about like XC bike versus something a little bit more burly.
Right. Okay. I think that's good consumer advice.
All right, second
We're going to
half.
hit the next question. Let's
in
work the same guy.
same terrain. And then along similar lines, if the issue with a bike like the Spire as a daily driver is that it's so overgunned on moderate trails, I'm wondering, why can I not just add more compression or alter the suspension tune in the back in order to create a more supportive feel that would more mimic a trail bike when I'm going out on more moderate rides? Thank you very much for the time, and looking forward to hearing your response.
Sweet.
Henry is the
Spy
resident
delegate.
Spire guy. Yeah, you got to talk about this. The
I think
Spire delegate.
so. I think you're absolutely right. You can do that. I think that a good setup is in terms of going up and down. It depends on the bike, but with the Spire, the best descending setup will also be, to my mind, like the best climbing. It feels comfortable. It's a good position. You get lots of grip, etc., etc. I think the issue you have with bikes like the Spire is that I want you to imagine, and I know we always talk about it, and maybe this won't track at all, but I think it's a bit like having a set of powder skis and riding them on flat, because there's more rocker. It just feels, and there's more basically head tube flop when you're going from side to side on a slacker bike. They just feel that much more sluggish through flatter turns. Similar maybe to how you could have a really good big, soft off-road car that can do anything, but as you take it through the turns, you get a lot of chassis roll.
Yep.
And you could say, hey, but why not just put some faster tires on? And that will help to a degree. But with the Spire, when you're going on flatter turns, it really relies upon the gradient to get a nice even weight distribution that's going to make you feel really confident leaning in, whilst not absolutely having to commit or ride something very steep just to get a really nicely weighted front that feels confidence inspiring.
Yeah.
And that's why trail bikes tend not to come at 62.5, 63 degrees, for one of the many reasons. I would say it is a good versatile bike. It's light. But I'd say a lot of the things that I'd like the Spire, it feels like that is sort of at the core what makes a transition anyway. Like, they always do seem to be quite light, tend to be quite simple, and that's the Spire. That's the official line from the Spire delegate. But does anyone else have any?
I think no, it's like front end grip is what it comes down to, as you're alluding to. It's like if your bike gets too slack for a certain type of terrain, then it really can bite you. Like, I have a bike that I on test right now that you can set up to just over a 62-degree head angle, and it turns like dog shit on flat stuff if you have it set up that way. But in something like obscenely steep, it is safe feeling, but it's just not well-rounded in that sense. So, I think that's what it boils down to for me, at least.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Matt?
Well, he did mention something there about like setting up the rear suspension differently, and kind of jumping back towards an article that Seb Stott wrote, like, does more travel, I forget what his title was, but like, does more travel make a difference, or why not just run firmer spring rates? You could do that, but I think, like you mentioned, you're not going to have the optimal setup. You're going to compromise something, and that kind of goes throughout the whole spiel here of like, setting up a bike. It's like, it's going to do, you can basically get it to do a good range of things really well, but it's not going to do everything even better, so you got to pick your battles.
But I think the Spire with an air shock, I'd say take all the volume spacers out, because it can have that sort of wallowy feeling in the mid-stroke. But an air shock, and if you wanted to put on some Exo Plus tires, you can still get a bike, that you can really, it's weirdly light for a bike, it rides really light. And it's funny, I've gone sort of the other way, and I've actually put a plus 2 degree angle set in there to steepen up, but actually get a net steepening, I think, at 1.4 degrees. Then I've got reverse space, which I put underneath to make the front a bit higher. Just because when you're not absolutely hammering along at warp speed and on the more kind of like trails around Squamish, even though maybe more, they're still very much enduro trails, but you know what I mean, just a bit slower speed, reducing that head tube flop has been really rewarding. So yeah, nice and vague for you. You'll work it out, big kid.
Just buy a Sentinel. Buy a Sentinel. Don't think about it. It'll be that way. You don't have to worry. Just like.
Okay, that's it, Kaz. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Hello, Pinkbike. I'm Justin. I'm calling from
Hi, Justin.
Kelowna, British Columbia, and just looking for a recommendation on enduro bikes. I'm looking for something that's got an aluminum frame, kind of moderate geometry, nothing that's like stupid slack, sort of in that new age of enduro bikes that Henry talks about, where they're almost all mountainy feeling. I'm 6'4". It would appear that I have really similar body dimensions to Dario.
Gangly.
He's been on that frameworks in a size large, and that looks like it's certainly an interesting bike. It is incredibly expensive and hard to get. It's also not a full 29er, which is something that I think I want. Is there any recommendations? Something like a raw Madonna framework type deal, but a little bit less expensive, similar geo. Thanks.
I would say those bikes do have quite extreme geometry, no?
Yeah, I think so. I'm also picturing him just walking along the side of an interstate recording this
Yeah, I like it.
question.
He's actually walking alongside Brian.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Brian takes most of his calls. He's busy.
Yeah, he's always on the road.
Commuting.
I think that the frameworks of the Raw are both not like an all mountainy bike. They're more like decidedly a long travel big bike for pushing.
Well, what about we had that bike, that Meta SX?
That was going to be my
It has a
recommendation.
29
Yeah.
counterpart. It's
Yeah.
alloy. You
Yep.
know, that suspension system doesn't feel the most sporty. It's got the weird notch at the start of the travel, which, I mean, as in, you know, this be
I like
It's
that
something
bike a lot.
Matt- yeah, I mean, but the suspension is amazing. I don't want to get too hung up on that, but that notch sometimes makes me feel a bit lethargic. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Matt. We both talked about that feeling.
Was that mixed wheel or 29 before?
That was mixed wheel, but they make the Meta
Yeah, 29. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
whatever Enduro race bike.
Yeah. That thing was
And that's
fun.
full 29 and almost exactly the same geo. Like they're very, very similar bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, although we do feel same about that bike. But that was going to be one of my suggestions. As soon as he said full 29 and aluminum, I don't know about the sizing on the XL, if that'd be, should be big enough. But that was definitely the first thing that came to mind. The Raw was also another one, but then, you know, it's a little bit heavier, a little bit more meaty of a bike. So yeah, it kind of depends on.
They're like a Capra, like an aluminum Capra.
Yeah.
Prices on those are super good. And that Geo is a little more on the conservative, like that's almost kind of has that all mountainy type of thing.
Yep. Another good suggestion.
Do you know what you could get? The last generation stump jumper, see if you can get one cheap. It's
Some
basically the
Evo.
same.
Yeah.
Metal.
True.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually
Evo.
a good rec. Is like depending on the terrain you're riding, like that's as much bike as you need, and you can get them for like
Yeah,
a really good deal right now.
Yeah, 150, 160. That is kind of like an all mountain bike.
I kind of missed where he was based, somewhere in BC.
Kelowna.
It's like Kelowna.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
It's got
Well, he might be
proper
getting
stuff.
closer as we speak. He might just be
He could
walking.
be- yeah, he's walking towards a new zone.
At 3 miles an hour, he's approaching a different area. Yeah.
honestly, I mean, there's a lot of bikes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, like we're kind of recommending big brands, but there's like so many little options too. Like there's the propane Tai, they make that in aluminum.
Yeah.
You can get one of those. There's like a lot of
Irvins,
brands.
Da Vinci.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, new
Trek,
Da Vinci.
there's tons.
Yeah.
That Troy that we reviewed for
Yeah.
field test this year would be like,
Oh, that Troy. That
All
can go from
mountainy.
29, I think.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I liked about those? I mean, I think the Troy and the Common Salt, I found them both quite like comfortable places to be. And I think if you're going to have maybe a bit less travel, then it's nice to at least have something that doesn't like rattle you, you know,
Yeah.
going for like a really stiff, sporty 140, 150 mil bike makes it just a bit more, uncomfortable if you were to do. And there is some, you know, and Kelowna's got some proper riding, especially,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, he might have a car, he might just walk everywhere, but if he has a car, he gets some.
Well, he doesn't have a
lots of
bike yet.
riding.
So when he gets a bike, he'll be moving quicker.
Yeah.
This poor guy is probably just like, fuck you.
Like, I'm just on a nice
basically
walk.
giving you content.
Assholes. Yeah. Yeah.
That Chromag was fun too. Pretty much all those bikes we had in that Enduro field test, most of them were all pretty good. That Chromag, it's not aluminum, it's steel, but it's not really all mountainy. It's more smashy, different.
Yeah,
That thing was pretty fun.
The lowdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too.
It is big as well if you want
Yeah.
some. That thing was amazing, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are many good
Cool.
options in this
Yeah, now that
realm.
we've confused
Yeah, and this has been
Yeah.
such a
Now
shit
that we've
answer, guys. We've given
listed
it-
all of the options in the category and given you no consumer advice,
Yeah. I think the
I mean-
common saw would be good for like price versus performance versus what it can do. I'd say common saw would be.
I'd buy a Meta or I'd
Hmm.
buy the Stumpy Evo.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I did buy
Okay,
a
well,
Stumpy
hey, we
Evo.
got there in the end.
I was him, 4 years ago, and I bought the Stumpy Evo. So
Then you made it to Bellingham after the great trek out west.
exactly,
What's the old caravan road. Whatever.
I too was walking along
It's like
an
the Oregon
interstate.
Trail.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hey, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much all for your time. Thank you very much, everyone, for your questions. And of course, thank you very much for listening. Keep those questions coming in, and you too can be confused by our shitty, unrelentingly fence-sitting feedback. Thanks, guys, and we'll catch you next time.